Hello.
Do I need to hook up to any of these, Ron? Are we good? Okay, let me get my phone away from here so we don't jack people up. Well, I want to thank y'all for coming out. I'm announcing today that we're in the process. We do not have the stamped copies yet. We will be handing out unstamped copies, but we should have the stamped copies shortly. But today I'm filing suit against the Biden administration, specifically the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, regarding their new rule that they have floated that would drastically change the law as it relates to gun shows. It is an administrative attempt to do what they could not get through the Congress, what the administration couldn't get through the Congress. And they do not have the power to do this unilaterally via fiat. And so on that legal basis, we are challenging it. We're also challenging it, as we often do with regulations where they are arbitrary and capricious. We are challenging it on that basis as well. But the fundamental point is, in a number of areas, the Biden administration has sought to change policy in areas, whether it be student loans, on the environment, on higher education, you name it. They have tried or are in the process of trying to change policy outside of Congress through the regulatory process, where they need to be going through Congress. On many items, in many areas, they have to go through Congress to change the law. And I know that they're doing this because they've been unable to change it through Congress. They're frustrated, I get it, but their frustration, their political inability to get what they want through the Congress does not change our constitutional structure. They still need to go through the Congress to change the law currently on the books. So let me talk a little bit about what this change does. And the basis for our challenge is a legal one, but I want to talk a little bit about the policy that is at issue here. So for years we have had a statute on the books that, and you've heard obviously of the gun show loophole, and the Firearm Owners Protection Act from 1985, sort of the foundational law. And it has a standard for those who need to have a federal firearm license and those who don't. And hobbyists, collectors, etc., historically have been able to buy and sell at gun shows without having to go through the arduous process of becoming a federal firearm dealer. That is statutory language. That is the law, not merely a regulation. And the standard prior to this rule has been that if you are making repetitive purchases and resale of firearms, then you may be considered a federal firearms dealer. Now, repetitive meant more than one. What it meant, well, that's always been an issue because it's not clearly defined in the statute. There is some discretion there, and I'll say a few words about that in a minute. So the law has never been perfectly clear as to where, perfectly clear as to where the ATF will draw the line and say, okay, now, because of this number of transactions, we consider you someone who needs a federal firearm license. That has not been abundantly clear. That is the statutory language. This proposed rule does not help clarify anything, putting aside the fact for a second that it is illegal. So let me show you. This is the rule. The rule is about 2 or 3 times the length of our lawsuit. This is our lawsuit, and this is the rule. Now, common sense tells you from the get-go, the rule violates the general principle that those of us who live under the rules and the laws and the regulations need to be able to understand the rules and the laws that we live under. If you look at this, it's over 100 pages. I think it's 126 pages discussing what the new rule is. Setting aside for a second the fact that it is illegal to make this the rule without going through Congress, let me talk about what this does. It does nothing to eliminate confusion, except on one point. Now, it indicates that even one cell of a firearm could constitute, could indicate that you need to be a federally licensed firearm dealer if it is for a profit. Well, why else would you sell something if not for a profit? That's common sense. But the point is, it still leaves a vast amount of discretion with the ATF, not giving those of us who live under the law guidance as to specifically what it means. So to recap, it's illegal because this sort of change in the law should have to go through the Congress. And the fact that you can't get it through Congress does not change the constitutional mandate that you follow the process. Now, I want to say something about an issue that is not specifically and technically the subject of this lawsuit, but relates generally to this issue. And that is the one of Mr. Malinowski, whose home was recently raided by the ATF. And Mr. Malinowski was killed. We don't have all the facts. We have limited facts. But what we can glean from press reports and what has been made publicly available is that Mr. Malinowski was a frequent attendee of gun shows and collected firearms, which is not illegal. And for whatever reason, the ATF believed that he had somehow met the nebulous, somewhat subjective standard. So what constitutes a federal firearm dealer and what doesn't. And we know what happened after that with the raid and ultimately his death. I mention that because there was confusion and a lack of clarity as to where the line is before, and this doesn't help. There's still a lack of clarity, and look, if you're going to be put in that situation based on your conduct, there's a heightened obligation by the government to provide guidance as to what they're talking about, and that should be done through the Congress. So this suit is being filed right now. There's a total of 21 states in our coalition. The list of states are in the press release that we'll be sending out. I am co-leading this effort with General Kobach in Kansas. One thing I wanted to mention is the firearm law that has been on the books since the 80s that allows for collectors, allows for hobbyists to make these kind of transactions. The Senator Joe Biden, many years ago, praised the law that has been on the books by saying, quote, "It's a balanced piece of legislation that protects the rights of private gun owners," end quote. So the bottom line is we have a law. It's not as clear as it should be. If you want to change the law, there are ways to do that. We learned that in Schoolhouse Rock. We learned the path of a bill and how to change the law. And what we've got today, and the reason for this suit, is the Biden administration continues on issue after issue, topic after topic, to ignore the fundamental elementary school taught constitutional process for changing the law, and instead are through fiat, administrative fiat, trying to change it in an election year for what to do something they could not otherwise do. Happy to take some questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mural moved with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. So you mentioned the lack of clarity as it pertains to the gun show loophole. So do you believe that that is an issue? And if so, how do you think is the proper way to address that?
Well, the legal foundation, so we've got two issues here, right? We've got the law and we've got policy. My role as the chief legal officer for the state of Arkansas is to file suits based on the law. The policy discussion can be had in the Congress where it belongs. The foundation of the suit is the illegality